Hey there guys, so this is a bench press video on programming and the rest of it. So for the backdrop I've just used the comp footage from when I hit the 232.5. So this was the opener at 217.5, and then the rest of it is just training footage and what went into the comp prep. Not all of it, but just an idea of bench. So you get an idea of sort of the weights that I was shifting, a bit of volume and things like that. So it just makes a really easy backdrop for the audio. Now, when it comes to how long a program should be, it really comes down to the individual. Personally, I prefer a 12-week approach. The main reason is it gives me the first 4 to 6 weeks to set the foundation, get my rep out work done, and have a reasonable idea of what my projected 1RM should be. So an example would be if you could bench press 180 kilos, say for a set of 10, you should be able to do it the same speed. If you're doing touch and press, you should be able to sort of touch and press then 240 kilos for a single. Now this is just a rough translation, and a lot comes down to bar speed. You're going to be within 5 to 7.5 kilos of that number. So, or another way of looking at it is whatever you can get for a set of 10, you should be able to add a third, and that's roughly where your 1RM should be once you've peaked. And providing, that set of 10, you're not just doing one set of 10, you're able to hit 3 to 4 sets of 10 with that weight. Because the reps, when you're benching for, 10s and the rest of it, the bar is going to move much quicker per rep than it is with a heavy single. The heavy single, you're going to be spending more time under tension for that rep than you will a single rep with a lighter load. When weight gets heavy, you don't want to drop it down quickly. It just doesn't feel natural. So you've got to take that into account. So, I like having that 4 to 6 weeks to get an idea of where my base level strength is. And then from there, say the projected goal was 240. It's like, okay, touch and press 240. Realistically, let's throw in a pause. I'm probably going to lose 7.5 or so kilos due to that. Maybe only 5 if I'm lucky, but we're going to be realistic and shoot for the 7.5. In terms of drop. So that puts me at 232.5. So it's like, okay, from there, let's have a look at how we're going to progress from that to a max. So for me, over the upcoming weeks, I reduce the reps, and then I just keep adding load. It's it's linear progression in that regard for the actual bench press program and peaking phase. Now, if you're doing a bench press program for a building strength phase, which is a lot different to newer lifters, because they're going to gain strength in that 12-week block. If you're been lifting for a long time, like this is my 17th year in the sport, I'm realistically not going to gain much strength at all in that 12 weeks. It's more about consolidating it and presenting it on the platform. So my approach is to shore everything up and peak, versus someone that's not as strong or hasn't been in the game for as long. They're better off sticking with maybe 2 to 3 weeks with 10s than dropping it down to 8s, and just linear progressing until they get to about 5 reps. Once you're sort of at that 5 rep mark, you have a pretty good idea of how much you're going to bench as a 1RM, because if you're only hitting 100 kilos, say for 5s, realistically it's like, okay, you're going to be hitting 105, maybe 107.5 kilos. It doesn't take much for you to peak that, doing a few rack holds at the end of the session, holding the 107.5 kilos for maybe a 20-second count, do 2 sets of that. You're going to get used to holding that weight, and it's not a huge shock to the system, versus if you're going from 180 up to 240, there's 60 kilos different, as opposed to only 5 to 7.5. And holding that much more weight through the hands feels very different, as opposed to only holding an additional 5 to 7.5 kilos. And a lot of people forget about that. They only look at percentages, but they don't look at the total load. Your body does respond differently when you're lifting really heavy. And there's some sessions where you just lift something, it's like that just feels ridiculously heavy. Percentage wise, it's like, yeah, realistically I should be hitting it easily, but it just feels really heavy. So, coming back to it, 12 weeks is a good length of program. I prefer 4 sets. For me, I'll hit 2 top heavier working sets followed by 2 lighter back off sets. The heavier sets might be reps of 5, the lighter sets might be reps of 8 to 10. If you're newer to this, try and keep everything at either 4 sets of 10, 4 sets of 8, and then dropping down that way until you work up to 4 sets of 5, and then 2-3 weeks out from comp, practice a few heavy singles, get used to pausing the weight. If, as I said, hitting, say, 100 kilo for 5s, and you're 3 weeks out, the next week warm up, hit 102.5 for a paused single. The next week, hit 105 for a paused single. And, the last week, 107.5 paused single. Anything sort of under that 3-plate mark, it's very easy to recover from. It's just when the weights really start to stack up, 4 plates and higher, you just want to allow a few more weeks for peaking. Another general rule is, and it comes down to the individual, if it takes you more than 4 weeks to peak at that top end, you might do 2 weeks and then the next week just slightly lighter, then another 2 weeks. So you might take 5 to 6 weeks to peak, but again, you're probably not needing this video in terms of programming for the first part of the video, like in terms of setting your program. Off season for a lot of the stronger people is where you're going to make a lot of your gains, and in that regard I prefer playing around with volume and time under tension, simply because it's easier on the joints. And, I don't have any joint issues, and, a lot of that's contributed to the fact that in my off season, I just play around with higher reps, and just, enjoy my training. I'm not trying to go heavy and hit singles year round, because it gets you injured, but not just from like a joint point of view. It's more you'll have lapses in concentration and then you'll do something stupid and that results in you getting hurt. So, you fall out the groove on bench press, end up in a weird position, you can hurt your shoulder. So, you've hurt the joint. Versus lighter weight, that's not the case. It's very hard to get hurt in that regard. You'll feel, a burning sensation, when you're getting close to the end of your working set. So it's a lot easier in that regard. And then a lot of the time, after I've done some really heavy stuff as well, in a competition block, towards the end, I'll do a few really light back off sets, anywhere from 3 to 5 reps, about 50 to 60%, of the weight that I use. And I'm just trying to make the bar move quick, because, I want to keep that movement pattern clean so that the next time I come back to shifting heavy weight, my body's not trying to move the bar slowly. It remembers, let's be quick, let's be explosive. And that cleans up my technique as a whole. The last thing you want to do is move a very heavy weight slowly. It just drains your energy and burns you out. And the more time under tension as well, the higher your chances of getting injured, especially if something feels like it's moving very poorly. So, that's just my take on it, and just like a brief overview in terms of programming. So as I said, 12 weeks is ideal, 4 sets works well, and I'm a big fan of the linear progression for stronger people. Lighter, not as strong people, they can get away with a little bit more volume and work just towards 4 sets of 5 with 2 to 3 weeks to peak. So hope that helps. Hit like and subscribe, and any questions, comment below. And thanks for watching.